This is the Shed End View podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Shed End View podcast. My name's Gareth and Ally.
And I'm Ally McKenzie.
And that man down there, waiting patiently, is none other than John Boyle. John, welcome to this week's special guest.
Boyler.
Thanks very much for having me, guys.
No problem, great to have you on. Firstly, it's a question we've been asking everybody since we've been doing these, since our lockdown, isolation, whatever you want to call it, the situation, we'll call it. Most boys have been, no work or whatever like that. You're slightly different. You're obviously a fire officer, a fireman. What's sort of work been like for you? Have you been? I'm sure you've been kept busy, and you're not too much spare time in the hands.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I was off there for a week or so because we had a wedding planned. One of the boys at home was getting married, so I was off for a set for that, and obviously that wedding was cancelled. But I'm in this week again, and I'm sort of in again tonight. But yeah, things are a wee bit different, as you can imagine. People are, very wary of the situation, and I think it's more the fact that it says, young, healthy people, it might not cause them massive harm, but I think it's the fact that you can carry it. So the whole social distancing thing within our work can be difficult at times, and it's just trying to adjust to that. And obviously every day there's new things coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're just sort of having to adapt, on the hoof, so to speak. But unfortunately, because people are staying at home a lot more and maybe drinking a lot more at the house, there has been probably an upturn, in certain instances. But we've been busy enough. But it's a bit different than what we would be used to. It's very much sort of like we're very close, but at the minute you're sort of trying to keep your distance, which is probably alien to everyone. Never mind sort of us boys in work as well.
John, I know it's a few of the other emergency services as well, like obviously the ambulance are busy and the police are busy. The likes of the community rescue service are doing different things where they're maybe not getting called out as much, but they're doing deliveries in the community. Are you doing anything differently, or are you literally just day per day doing exactly the same?
Basically day by day. We're trying to limit probably doing certain aspects of things. Things like that have been mentioned, and I know across in the mainland, they're doing different aspects of that. As far as I'm aware with us, at the minute, we're just sort of operationally ready to deal with calls and stuff. And we do attend calls with the likes of the ambulance or first responders anyway. So as far as that, at the minute, that would be our main focus, is just being sort of operationally ready. And there has been an upturn in calls, so we have been sort of busy without doing sort of other aspects of the community engagement stuff that we used to, sort of pride ourselves on, that we can't really do at the minute, although we do it over the phone.
I mean, so obviously you've been kept busy from a work perspective, but as we've been talking about, and as everybody knows, from a football perspective, and all, everything else, I suppose, is basically shut down, nothing happening. So I suppose if we delve back, we don't have a whole pile of talk about in terms of, recent matches, obviously. So if we delve back a wee bit to when you joined Newry, about 2.5, 3 seasons ago now, I think, thereabouts. How did that move come about? I mean, given the fact that you are so sort of you are so well liked at Warrenpoint, to many people, sort of coming down to Newry was a bit of a shock, and I know it was a bit of disappointment up Milltown direction at the time. There certainly was a lot of celebration down the Showgrounds. I mean, from your perspective, how did that move come about?
I don't know if you have long enough to.
We've all the time in the world, Boyler. Are you far away?
This is a 3-part podcast, Gareth, I'll tell you.
You need a limited series. Is that what they do in Netflix? Yeah. Without going into too much detail, how could you put it diplomatically? There would need to be somebody else in the room, or a couple other people in the room, to answer the question. All I can say is that I suppose disappointed is an understatement in what went on in a very short space of time. But sort of looking back on it now, I think it's worked out better probably for me. Up the road has changed quite considerably to what it used to be. And I know like the world of football is quite ruthless in terms of your longevity or whatever at a club, but I just sort of think it could have been handled better, but I suppose the outcome has been good for me. It wasn't so good at the time. I think it's probably one of the only times where I cried my lamps out for a while after a certain phone call, but it is what it is, and you have to move on quickly. And it probably has given me more of a determination to prove certain people wrong, and hopefully that has transpired on the pitch. It's probably as polite as I can put it without.
Yeah, it's definitely an eloquent approach to that answer, isn't it? So, John, I'm pretty sure you had a big name for yourself, particularly at Warrenpoint. When you left, now I don't know the situation, but I'm sure your phone was pretty busy with people trying to call you and trying to get in touch with you. A few other teams might have been interested, but why Newry? Why did you come down to the Showgrounds?
Well, that would be another story too, where it was probably happened quite quickly, and I sort of had said if I wasn't required, because I played up until Christmas, I think, and then I got suspended for Boxing Day, and then they played then the week after, and I was on the bench, and then the week after was the Irish Cup, and I didn't come on, and then I was getting the feeling. I think you can get a feeling where things aren't really, and I couldn't really understand it personally. But I suppose everyone that doesn't get a game can't really understand it. But I really couldn't understand it. So I had been saying to him, if you don't require my services, can you make me available? And that was all well and good. And then there was nothing really coming of it. And now I did know there was inquiries from a couple of teams because it had been made personal to me that people, and then there still was no word from up the road. So, and it sort of got me a bit flustered then as to what was going on. But then finally, it was sort of the 11th hour then that, there was a couple of teams were looking at me, and I suppose I battered with it for a while, but I suppose looking at Newry and looking at the players I'd played with, a lot of them, it wasn't an easy decision, but I think it was the best for me because I knew January can be quite a difficult time. You're sort of coming in quite quick, you've no time to bed in at all. And I knew most of the boys, so I knew it would fit in well. So I knew a lot of the boys' games, so it was probably going back to what the point used to be like in terms of there was a lot of people that had played for the point, so it was probably an easy decision looking back at it now. But I remember at the time there was a couple of things and I was torn a bit, but I suppose thankfully I made, I think, the right decision, and like in hindsight, obviously.
Do you think that whenever you come in, and obviously you said you knew a lot of the boys coming in, made that transition a wee bit easier, did you genuinely believe we were in the Premier Intermediate League at the time, that the capability was to get to the Premiership as soon as we ended up doing? Do you think that capability was there? Were you genuinely, or did it take a few weeks for that to sort of bed in?
I don't know about the Premiership. Was probably a bit too far of a stretch at that time. I remember you were doing that documentary, and I remember Ali asked me a question, what did you want to do? And I was like, I want to win promotion, because looking at the calibre of player that I had played with maybe a season or 2 seasons ago in the Premiership, they were playing in Mid-Ulster or the Premier Intermediate League too, and no disrespect to that league, but the boys shouldn't have been playing in that league. If I'm being honest, obviously it's a rite of passage to get where you need to go. So, like, I know they were 5th or 6th or something, they'd gone on a wee bad run, but I always sort of knew that they were well capable, and it's actually probably disappointing that we didn't win that league, to be honest. We should have probably won it. We were beat by Limavady or something, 1-0 in a real bad game, but we probably should have won the league, never mind, got promoted. But obviously playoffs are finals, and there's a better sense of achievement, I think, than sort of winning the league. There's more of an atmosphere about it, and the memories are probably better than just simply winning the league. So maybe it was a better thing than just winning the league.
Yeah, like you said there, John, whenever you did arrive at Newry, we were doing the documentary and you probably had a camera in your face from the first day. Your arrival was much anticipated for a lot of the people, but for us in particular, we thought, this is great. This is a real chance now for promotion. But, what do you feel that you brought into that changing room whenever you did join? Did you bring something that was maybe missing, or how do you feel that you bedded in?
I don't really think so. I think you can look at runs and different things, and you can sort of look nearly too much into it. The team was good enough anyway. And I would be fully confident that if I hadn't came, they still would have got promoted. Even looking at the teams we played against, there's a lot of really, really good players there. It's just sometimes things goes against you or goes for you. I don't know. Like, I don't really do a whole pile. I try and stop, trying to score goals. But that's the easy part of it. That's the real easy bit. That's the bit that, can be done on a training pitch in terms of shape and different things. That's the easy part of it. So for me, coming in, if it gave boys a bit of a lift, maybe, because they knew me or whatever, I don't really know. Or, maybe give boys, a kick up the backside in terms of putting pressure on them to play. Maybe I don't really know, but the part that I play is very simple. I don't do the hard thing. I do what's necessarily the easier thing that, like anyone can really do if you really sort of focus in. So I do open my mouth quite a bit, which maybe helps some people. But in terms of doing anything for the squad, no, the squad was more than capable of getting out of that league, like no question in my mind, to be honest. And I know people have said about me coming in and stuff, I've heard people say it, but for me, definitely the squad was more than capable of getting out of that league. And so it's proved, since they went up higher and higher again.
I mean, looking at, I suppose if we do it sort of chronologically, obviously you get promoted at that Premier Intermediate League season after you come in January, and then obviously what happened the following season, the Championship against Carrick. I mean, did you think then that, okay, right, we'll get up into the Premiership, that's back, obviously every player wants to play at the highest level. Is that sort of, even though you thought at the start joining Newry, maybe Premiership was a wee bit far off at that stage, but did you think that sort of, right, okay, we can actually go and do a bit of damage in the Premiership? As it transpired, we didn't. But do you think that there was more capability there at that point last season to stay up?
Yeah, I think. See, my memory's terrible, but I can't really remember. You should probably correct me if I'm wrong, but that Premiership season was real funny because we never really took a bad beating, really. And I think in a lot of games, teams, not in all the games, but certainly in a vast majority of games, we conceded like massively against the run of play. And like there was a lot of games where we sort of maybe like shaded possession and stuff, which was probably very reminiscent of the first year we went up with Warrenpoint and managed to hang on and stay up. But I remember, very disappointed, and then the season sort of just petered out at the end, and it was just unfortunate with different things. But I think obviously we lacked goals, which was a big thing.
Yeah.
But again, how do you get goals? You have to go and get the best players, and the best players cost an awful lot of money. And is that something that Newry can afford to do in a one-off shot? Like, I don't think so. And I don't think after what's happened before, it would be right to do something like that. But obviously goals or missed chances, there was games that turned on a silly decision or whatever. It just sort of all crumbled, and maybe the luck we had in the couple of years getting up the way has sort of dissipated a bit. Because there was an awful lot of games where we should have got something or won and we didn't, and that's probably the most disappointing thing about the whole thing. It definitely wasn't a lack of effort. It just, split-second decisions just that we have or are in our control just didn't really go with us at that time.
I mean, looking at one of the highlights, I suppose, from last season, obviously, I mean, you were involved with a couple of them, the one that home win against Cliftonville earlier in the season, which you scored, and your celebration was, pretty sort of vocal and I wouldn't say emotional, but very, very for somebody that's pretty chilled out, like, I mean, it was a proper celebration, and then you scored twice away to Warrenpoint.
To put us 4-0 up.
Yeah, to put us 4-0 up. I mean, that would have been, everybody would have understood if you had have run away and not celebrated whatsoever, because Warrenpoint's in your blood and you're a Newry player. The second goal was a bit of a sort of fist pump and a smile and stuff, like, which, to be honest with you, I wasn't expecting. I was watching it back last week. I mean, what was that feeling like? Was it a weird feeling scoring twice against the club that you'd grown up with, basically?
Yeah, it is a strange feeling, and it's something I never really expected it probably ever to happen, but because I don't really score that many, first and foremost, never mind playing against them, but especially to score two. It's strange. It's just because obviously some people are always on to you about coming back and different things, and you hear people think that around Warrenpoint, that whispers spread like wildfire. So obviously I've heard certain things that have been said about me. So it was obviously a nice thing to do, to score and to win, probably more than anything, because there still was a chance probably at that stage. And we had let a couple of leads slip against Warrenpoint last year, so I thought probably in going that far ahead that the game was sort of done and dusted, and we could sort of move on to the next, and we were gaining a bit of momentum then again to make that final push to to stay up, is probably more than actually scoring against Warrenpoint to that.
Yeah.
John, I'm thinking here, there'd be very few players that would have as many promotions as you have. Coming up through the leagues with Warrenpoint, you made it to the Premiership, then you come back to Newry, you're in the Premier Intermediate League, you come back up through two leagues, and you're a Premiership again. Do you ever just think, or does your heart ever just think, I would love just an easy league in the Premiership and a mid-table team without the kind of adrenaline and panic of trying to get promoted?
Well, there is that there too, but I remember with the point we won Championship 2 and we were only beat once, and I remember the celebrations should have been mad, when we won Championship 2. I don't know how many years ago was that. I wouldn't even like to say because it would show my age, but I remember the celebrations after it, and they were sort of muted. It was an expectant thing. Or when I played in the Mid-Ulster with the point, we won leagues and cups, and it was oh well, it was expected, whereas I think in the hustle and bustle of a two-legged playoff, there is something better about it. I know people point to medals or show me your medal haul or whatever, but I never really won for that. It's more sort of memories, and that's the thing. I remember the feeling of adrenaline or anticipation, or I can remember most games before a game, the real itching to do really, really well. And going through the whole process of trying to do really, really well. I can't really remember the games, but I can remember that feeling, before the game or the day of the game, the whole build up to it and thinking about it. And I suppose that's the thing that I'll take away. I know loads of people will show me your medals, and I've none, or any I have, I don't even know where they are. But I have loads of memories, and really good memories, and the scenes in a lot of them playoffs, will stand to me way more than a lot of the the cups that we won with the point in Mid-Ulster, or the Championship 2 that we lifted. Is, yes, it's a good cheer, but there's something more I think about the playoff. It's like a cup final type atmosphere. It's I don't know, I think the fans buy into it a bit more. The crowds that came out away to Armagh and Carrick were probably more than if we had won the leagues at home. So that whole thing, and the sort of the build up of the week and all, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a bit unfair at times when maybe the second team are way out in front in the league, but it does make a spectacle of something, and it's maybe because I've won probably all of them played, but that I've never had the downside to it. I've had plenty of downsides, but I've never lost a playoff, but it's always been really, really emotional for a lot of people. So I think that's the thing that when I look back on, I'll sort of have a bit of a smile on my face about them sort of things.
And just, sorry, Gareth, just when you said about memories there, John, I'll just take you back to the ultimate memory. Was your debut for Newry, which was down at the Dub for against Queens. The head shake says it all there. You scored one and then you were sent off as well. But what was it like to actually, score your debut first of all, and then the different emotions of getting sent off in that match?
Yeah, I suppose scoring, it's like, I can't believe I've scored because I'm not that prolific, and that's probably the massive weakness in my game, is that I don't score enough from the chances that I get in terms of corners or set pieces that are done. I don't score enough. But I suppose it was all thing. But I remember playing in the game and the ref kept on blowing me up and I couldn't understand it at all. And if you look on my actual card history, I don't get suspended that often or very rarely. So it was a bit of a shock to the system that I got sent off, and it was for nothing. I think you give one for handball. It wasn't handball. And then I can't remember what the second one was. My memory's terrible.
I think it was like a stupid tackle or something like that. It was hardly even a tackle.
Yeah, he probably dived or something. I don't think stupid tackles, but it was really strange because it's something that hasn't really happened to me, especially in soccer, where I would get cards or sent off or anything like that there. So it was very strange. But thankfully, Jimmy scored a screamer to win it, so it didn't really matter.
Because I remember you getting sent off and just hopping the barrier and coming over and sitting beside Molly and myself. And I was just like, it's only at this level of football would you get that. Debut, he scores a goal, gets sent off, and he's in with the fans just watching the rest of the game. It was brilliant, but also it must have been a nightmare for you as well.
Yeah, it was a nightmare because it was 1-1 at the time, and I was like, this isn't the way it's supposed to go. That sort of way. And I suppose it was probably easier for me doing it because I knew a lot of them anyway, so it didn't feel as if it was a new team and I could be quiet.
Yeah.
There was one or two that I didn't know personally, but I knew of them, and they're all great fellas, the likes of Big Plug and Chrissy McMahon and those that played, they're great fellas. So it was very easy for me. So I felt as if I could sort of, I could hit the ground like really running, as opposed to other people that come to a different club in January and you sort of tread the water for a while.
From your perspective, Boyler, I know you touched on you didn't want to hark back too far because you'd be giving away your age or giving away how old you were. So I know what age you are, but I'm not gonna say it on here. I mean, you're younger than me, if that's any consolation. You've also played for a sport that is going to be higher level than me, which wouldn't be difficult there. But I mean, in terms of, you're obviously brilliant run with Warrenpoint in the championship last season in Gaelic. I mean, just didn't pan out again in the final stages, but you still obviously playing that, and you played superbly last year in that. How long do you see your sort of career in both sports, I suppose, but particularly obviously we're talking about soccer here. How long do you see that going on? I mean, have you set yourself a date or a retirement date, or do you want to just keep going as long as you can keep going?
I wouldn't say keep going as long as I could keep going. It would be more that I could feel that I could contribute to a level that I would be happy with. I've a few people, like obviously at Newry at the minute, Gary's there, so Gary is like probably the one person, he's the most honest. If you want an honest appraisal or a breakdown of your performance, our Gary is 100% the person to go to, because he'll give you it warts and all, which I like. Some people don't really like it, but I do. So he's there, so he'll, I'm sure, tap me on the shoulder and say, Trina goes to watch quite a few games, so she would definitely tell me when it's time to give up. And she's probably tried to do it already because I'm always out of the house. And then my dad goes quite a bit too, and I think he would tap me on the shoulder and say, I think the goose is cooked here. But the one thing I would add is I probably train more now than I ever did. Yeah. So I do an awful lot of work away from it, which it probably doesn't tailor to, or you wouldn't think. But I do try and do quite a bit away from it now. And so at the minute I feel okay. Obviously this lockdown has given you a different perspective of what life is like without football, or without me being involved in football too, which I don't know could I see myself doing that for 50 odd years? I'd have to get something else, or I'd drive everyone mental. But no,
Take
no
up golf.
intention at the minute. Obviously, people are working with me quite a bit, and if I feel tired, I think at this stage I sort of know my own body, whereas before I would have plodded on to my detriment, whereas now I sort of speak up if I feel not that I can't do it. It's just I know myself that I'm tired and I sort of need maybe a night off or whatever.
Yeah. Well, look, I think we're going to move on to our thing we do, our section we do every guest just at the end. And I know you've actually done it, that we haven't sort of published them yet, but it's their five aside for your current squad, your current teammates. So I want you just to give you who's the most skillful, etc., and you tell us who it would be and why, very briefly. So we'll start off with the easiest one. The easiest one is who's the most skillful of the present squad and why.
Most skillful. I think I said, I'll not say all the same answers, but I think I said on a five-a-side pitch, Hughesy's probably quite skillful in the five-a-side pitches, but on a full-size pitch, he has to try and beat you like 15 times because you can get back at him. So it depends what you class as skill. You see, I always look at like defensive attributes, and I think that's really skillful. Like 1v1s who's never beaten stuff. But I suppose like beating players and stuff. Kevin McCardle is quite skillful at that. Foley sort of knocks the ball on and runs because he's quite quick. So I don't know if that's skillful. Josh Durnan's quite technically gifted as well.
Yeah, John said that last week.
Yeah, he's got a bit about him in terms of actual technique as well. There's a few there, but it's hard to tell. Maybe Kevy or Hughesy aren't bad on the ball now. They're very good, yeah.
Fair enough.
So, John, who would be the best at giving the pep talks, management aside? Now, this could be pep talks / the biggest yap in the changing room, but you can you can take that whatever way you want.
Yeah, because I'd be quite quiet in the changing room. I don't really like to speak that much unless somebody has really, really pissed me off. There's a few ways like to shout and roar, and sometimes it's warranted, and then sometimes. I remember we were on a real bad run there, and I suppose the local fellas really, really care about the club, And I think Engine spoke one time, and you could see he was visibly like, I won't say upset and crying, but it really meant a lot that we weren't performing to the level we were, and he sort of ranted and raved for a good while, and you can tell it's coming from a good place. Now, not necessarily in our changing room, but there have been in changing rooms before where people rant and rave, and it's false, it's for show. But I remember that day and thinking, yeah, you're sort of spot on there. So he gave one there not that long ago, which I thought hit the nail on the head. Well, it was a good while ago because we weren't doing that well.
Who would be the brainiest player at the club? I know it's probably a small pool to select from in this one.
I think I said Mark McCabe because he gets himself into awful jams and always comes out of them. And there's a few people I know that play the fool, and it takes a very wise man, don't they say, play the fool sometimes. And if he can get away with anything, because everyone just shrugs his shoulders now, he could actually say or do anything, and everyone would let him away with it. So maybe it's him.
Usually, John, at this point then we'd ask the final question, but we've changed the final question this week because Sean McMullen has sent me a question for you, and this is for our five-a-side team now. He said, who's got the best arse in the changing room?
Now
I think he was referring to yourself, maybe.
Because it's massive. That's it served me well playing football, to be fair.
I don't know whether Mully's referencing this time. Were you there the famous occasion when he shot himself upside down in the change rooms, or have you seen that?
I've seen it. I've seen it plenty of times. That's not a new phenomenon. years ago.
Right,
Years
the
ago.
last couple of ones that we have. So, what was the best excuse for missing training that you've heard? I'm sure there's been a few of them.
Yeah, there's a few boys I've flagged doing one night a week, which I don't really know how that all works. That's a pretty handy enough excuse to have. We'll not mention names and who they are, but they get to just train once a week, which is handy for them. The one with Carville lifting and then his woman to get her nails done and sort of saying that he was doing that, rather than saying, you can be loose with the truth. You don't have to go out. And he left training early as well. So he came late and left early to leave her to get her nails done. It's sort of, I don't know what you would make of that.
I do recall not long after Carville re-signed, when you were training out in the wee pitches out the front, and Carville and Conor McCall came out about 10 minutes after everybody else because we're having a cup of tea and a biscuit, and you sort of said to Carville, he says, time to call this. Says, you come out at the same time as everybody else. You think you're something for a big shot now because you're up playing Ballymena. Something along those lines. And he just sort of looked at you, and you'd seem to have a big serious look on your face, to be fair.
Yeah, well, see, I would read, or I like watching documentaries and stuff and different things, and I used to be a huge Roy Keane fan and all, and he was big one, and I was watching something the other day about you don't look for perfection, but you look for the perfect effort.
Mm-hmm.
It was a team that went on this big, massive winning streak. So, if you're going to come to training, I think you should train. It was a joke with a jag, but at the same time, I think we only train twice a week. So, yeah, I like reading hearing King stuff from years ago when he played. Maybe not as much now as he's a pundit because he says things for a fact. But
yeah.
I think when I like to watch them sort of documentaries or sort of them inspirational films, and you always get things from training and effort, and that's the common theme that comes through all the time now. You even hear the new Michael Jordan's documentaries out on Netflix at the moment, and that's all you hear about him, that he worked harder than everyone else. So I think that's just sort of bread and butter, and not that it does frustrate me at times, but I was only messing with him. But at the same time, I think some people just need to be told sometimes.
Well, you need those standards, don't you?
That's it.
I think so, yeah. Not that I should be saying it, but when you look at people, and I suppose now that I'm older, I sort of realise at times when I was younger, if I'd known now what I did then, could you have pushed on more? Probably 100% yes. So, if sometimes you sort of have to have a joke with a jag, then so be it. But, it's probably just because I know I've experienced things and done things in which maybe I had done things slightly different or put more effort in at certain times.
Well, John, I know how you feel because I have to keep Gareth right all the time. So I have to keep him on the straight and narrow all the time here. He's always turning up late to these podcasts or ringing me last minute looking at advice,
Nonsense. What's that?
I says, to be fair to the two boys, they don't do it that often, so it was only that one off.
Just very quickly, in 15 seconds, who be Mr. Pass the Buck? So who doesn't take responsibility for anything?
I'm going to say Darren Mullen, because he used to always blame the centre halves for conceding. It could be anything at all, and it was always the centre halves' fault. He used to always go on and go on. It could be a corner, it could be anything at all, and it was always our faults.
Fair enough. I think that's the perfect way to end it. But you've been a brilliant guest.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on, and obviously, stay safe at work and stay safe with the family and everything. And hopefully, we'll see you back in the pitch Showgrounds very, very soon. Thanks very much, Boyler.
Yeah, Boyler. Thanks very much.
Cheers, Ian.